my first attempt at a tutorial. Um, I don't really have much of a microphone. I'm actually using my headphones microphone. So apologies if the audio is terrible. But I thought what I'd do here is just to give a brief tutorial on something that someone mentioned, I guess somewhere in Reddit. Someone mentioned, oh, this idea that you had was pretty ridiculous. Why don't you do a tutorial on it? So I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. What the tutorial's on is basically just looking at tile maps in for making like simple, 2D games or whatever it is. Looking at tile maps and how to create them without like some kind of fancy software, right? So let's just use literally bare bones kind of software to get to get a tile map into a game that actually can kind of represent different objects or whatever it is. Now, this approach is only going to get you probably kind of 5 different objects, 6 different objects, but at least you'll be able to build the world and actually create quite a simple world that is traversable, whatever. A very simple dungeon crawler type thing, and this is actually exactly what I did for one of my games called Dungeons and Dragons. So just to give you an overview of what we're going to look at here, we're going to look at building a tile map in Excel. We're going to look at just a very simple function called conditional formatting. It's not a function really, it's like a feature, I guess. And then we're going to apply that and then obviously convert the Excel file to CSV, because that's effectively a text format and that's very easily readable into your games. Maybe there's another way to do it, I don't know, but that's a pretty simple way to do it. So I guess let's check it all out. So here we have the lovely Excel. It's a pretty nifty program, if I might say so myself. You can actually do a lot more in this program than people give it credit for, but we're not going to go into all of that today. What we're just going to do is just look at, as I mentioned, trying to build a tile map in Excel. Let's see how we do that. Okay, so what we're going to do, very simple tile map. Generally speaking, you'd have, walls surrounding a room, right? So what we're going to do is just use 1 for if there is a wall in the world, and we're going to put a 0 if there's like empty space. So all we need to do is just put our ones like that. So, whoop. Put our ones like that. Do the same thing over here, and do the same thing down here. And then obviously we can just do zeros everywhere else, so that's everyone's winning. So now you got your tile map. It's I mean, I'm not showing you anything that you couldn't have done yourself, probably in a text editor or something, right? So that maybe it's slightly quicker, but basically I haven't saved anyone any time. What you can do, I mean, in Excel, obviously you can just very simply copy paste. So now I've just created 3 rooms, and maybe I can add in a little pathway over there through to each room. But even then, I mean, I haven't really saved us much time, and what the hell was the point of that? So that, I guess, on top of that, actually, you're going to look at this and you say, okay, well, imagine this is now 700 rooms. Now I can't see what the hell's going on here. It's especially if I'm zoomed out, let's just say, I don't know, 30%. I've got some massive, I can't see anything that's going on over here. I mean, these are tiny. I don't know what it looks like in the stream, but on my screen, tiny. So I can kind of see what's going on over here. That's cool. But once I zoom out, got a problem. Nothing's going to really work for me. Right. So first thing I do is I just say, okay, let's look at what the height of each cell is. Okay, that's 20 pixels. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these cells, and you know what, I'm going to do this for like, I don't know, maybe like, where's that cursor? There it is, bottom left. So 100 columns, there we go, boom. Okay, what did we say? 20 pixels. I think it was. That was not. 20 pixels. Boom. What was this? 20 pixels. Okay, cool. So this first 100 columns are 20 pixels each. What we're going to do, we're going to highlight all of our numbers, whatever it is. And in fact, we can actually highlight the entire area. So I'm just going to go down to, well, 100 by 100. I'm going to say, okay, 100, where's 100? There it is, and there it is, cool, 100 by 100. I'm going to do this. So in not file, in home, in conditional formatting, what you want to do is you want to go to color scales, and then we want to choose a color scale. Now, what I like doing is having the red as the kind of the most severe number, and then green as kind of the least severe. Now, obviously, what's going to happen here? We only got two numbers, so the number one should be taking red. I think this is the instance where one will take red, and green the zeros will take green. So obviously, what we can tell from that is, well, that's just a great way to visualize the world. Now I've just got a perfectly adequate way to visualize the world. And even if I do zoom out to 30%, yeah, I can still see my world. That's pretty cool. So now I can start building the world, and I can actually see what it looks like. Not only that, but I can actually, let's say I want to add in like a, like a ghost over here, right? I'll use the number 2 for a ghost. Cool. So now what it's done is it's turned this into kind of that intermediate color, orange or yellow or whatever that is. And then where there's a ghost, it puts that in red now, because that's now the highest number, right? 2 is the highest number. So let's just say we want a few ghosts, so we're going to have like a bunch of ghosts over there. Boom. And let's just say we want like the player's number 3. Okay, cool. So there's number 3, and you can see that's still a different shade to that orange over there. So that's more it. Now, like I said, this only works for about like 5 colors or so, because once you start going beyond that, it's actually starts getting quite difficult to see the different colors. But if you're making a simple game, you're doing a game jam or something, and you want to create your own assets, I definitely copy pasted that incorrectly. But you want to take your assets and whoopsie, you want to take your assets and you want to build, I don't know, like a world map very quickly, right? So what have I done here? I've already created something bigger than 100x100, and I can see exactly what it looks like, right? And actually, if you copy paste values in here and you copy them somewhere else, even in cells where we didn't put the conditional formatting, it copies that conditional formatting too. Then I can imagine I can go down there, put in a 9. That only works in that area. So you got to kind of highlight the entire area and then click on conditional formatting, make sure it's all aligned to each other rather than kind of in separate brackets. I guess one of the things that's a bit annoying right now is that all these cells actually have this kind of, the kind of number. You can still actually see the number, right? You can kind of just make it that's 3 and whatever. That's actually not that optimal. So what we can also do is if you highlight everything, and you might actually want to highlight like more the world, whatever it is, everything on the Excel spreadsheet, which you can actually do by just like clicking this button right at the top left. I don't know if you can actually see that. But just on the top left, yeah, if you click there, then it like selects everything. So let's zoom back out all the way 30. What you can do, it's pretty cool. There's a nice little shortcut, Control-1, and that just gets you to format cells. All you do is you go custom, and then type in general. Now you can change it to like different kinds of numbers and dates, whatever. If you don't know Excel, that's actually pretty handy. You can do quite a lot of cool stuff there. But actually, if you just put in two quotation marks, inverted commas, whatever you want to call them, then all you have to do is press OK after that. So just type those two in, press OK, and now it gets rid of them, right? So they're actually still there as values, right? inside the cell, these values still exist. So I've still got my ones for the walls, zeros for empty space, and should be a 3, and that should be a 2. So still got all that information, but what I've now been able to do, obviously, is make the visualization a little bit better. And what we probably want to do is just get rid of these guys because that's not correct. And that was totally weird. So what do we want to do? We probably want to like delete these guys instead. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Whatever. And then obviously these guys are kind of all in a similar. I guess the conditional formatting, like you mentioned, you've got to be pretty careful about that. You want to make sure that the conditional formatting is applied to every cell. So I could re-add that in, but I'm just going to keep this as 100 x 100 or 100, whatever, 93 x 100. But as you can see, we've got our huge world now. Well, huge for a tiny game, I guess, but you know. What I actually did in the Dungeons and Dragons, I think I had something along the lines of, what was it? Let's see, it was, I think 600 columns, and something similar in rows. I can't remember exactly. I'm not sure why my copying is getting deleted every time I copy in something, which is a bit annoying. Oh, it's because I was overriding. But now I've got an absolutely massive world. I mean, this is going to be too big to explore in a simple kind of game jam-y kind of game jam. So you can just very quickly load this tile map in, pretty quickly at least. But the most important thing is you can really quickly make this map. So let's say I want to create a huge room over here. Boom, for my room. I'd obviously need to just create some walls. So we're just going to have to do something like this. In fact, what I'm going to do is take that and copy it down here so that I have those guys too. Over there. And then I can just kind of do that. And then just highlight those guys, put that in there, and now I've got a massive room over here. And then I can like dot that with like, what do we say, like 2 was the player, and I don't know, like uh, loads of ghosts. Maybe a few players, and then whatever. Or these can be other monsters, whatever. So that's pretty cool. Now we've got the visualization in there, and it looks all ready to go. Right, so what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at converting this to a CSV file. So this CSV file, it's just a text file, just with a slightly different name, I guess. It just means comma separated values, I think. And basically that all that means is that it's in a format which is very easy to read when importing it into kind of like an array in our game, we might have some kind of import function which just kind of reads from the file. Every time it sees a comma, it puts the next series of letters or numbers or whatever it is into a new element in this big array that you create. So we could like make an array of world objects, and would just kind of fill up that array. And then obviously you'd have to have some kind of either 2D array or 1D array, but fill it out in a kind of 2D format. So what we need to do is convert this to that CSV file. And there's one major thing that you need to do. And I sometimes forget this, and it's very annoying when you do. But you do have to highlight everything and convert. You have to convert it to a general type, back from this kind of weird custom type that we had. The problem is if you don't do that, if you leave it as this type, then actually that's what gets exported to the CSV file. So you won't actually have anything in the CSV file. It would be a terrible game. So what you want to do here is you want to have a general, and then it actually puts back all these numbers. But that's fine because we're not going to save the XLSX file. That's very hard to say. But what we're going to do is we're going to save it just into the CSV file. So we're going to save it as this kind of tile map, what I call the XLSX file. We're going to save it as this comma delimited, separated values. And we're gonna click save now, and that should be good. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to the directory now, and we're going to see if we have a text file that meets what we think we have. So we're going to open this guy up, but first I'm just going to close this because we're actually in the file. And instead of opening the CSV file, because that's quite boring because you're just looking at it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change it now to TXT file. You don't need to do this if you're reading it as like characters from a file type of format. You can read it from a CSV file exactly the same way as a TXT file. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change it to TXT file so we can look at what it looks like here. If I open it up, you can kind of see, the various rooms, right? She has one of the rooms, and he has like that ghost of the player that we made, and then there should be like a big empty room somewhere down here. Here's this big empty room that we made. Now, obviously, if you had to try hand write this thing in this editor, it would be a complete nightmare because you can't like copy paste very nicely and all those kind of problems. But what you can do, obviously, is we've got a nice situation where when we can create that all in Excel, and then we can just move over, put it in a CSV format. We don't even need to change it to a TXT format. And then that's very simply readable by your game. So it's only like one extra step in terms of saving a file, because you have to save effectively 2 files here. But it's really not that much of an additional step. And it means that you can use Excel as your very simple world builder thing. And actually, I mean, what you could do in theory, you could go through this and actually you could start like changing just single values if you just want to very quickly update one of your rooms or whatever. Just it's kind of final testing before you kind of quote unquote ship the game. Although we're definitely not talking about anything that exciting here. But all you need to do is just, I could easily change this to 2, or if I've made a new monster and I only want like a boss monster, and maybe that's a 4, that guy will be in that room. And then you are good to go. Now, obviously, if you make changes in this, they're not going to be back in your XLSX file, so you just need to be careful of that. But that's a pretty cool way of creating pretty big maps for very simple games. Right, so as I mentioned, I actually used this exact strategy for my game Dungeons and Dragons. Never do this, by the way. This is completely ridiculous, but that's what GitHub's for. I learned my lesson. Right, so here's the game, and all you need to do is see this thing that says map, and that looks quite familiar, because this is the map that I generated using Excel. And what we actually can do now is we can rename this as a CSV. Let's go open that up and see what it looks like. CSV. Cool. Let's open this guy up. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at everything, and then we need to find the right formats, column width, and I think that's going to be, we need a number, 1.57. Close enough. Right, so what we're going to do is look at that. We're going to highlight everything, and we are going to do that. And now we can zoom out to, 5%, 10%. And here is my map that I generated using this exact technique. And as you can see, put in my neck over here, so that's lots of fun. And I created all cool little shapes, and here's this kind of Mines and Moria situation, which was quite fun. And this is a starting area where your player starts. If you go play the game, you'll see exactly this. It will look very familiar. So what we're going to do now is just have a look at what this game looks like. Since opening up game, as you can see, that's that kind of starting area. We move up here, there's this area, and then like there's this kind of Mines and Moria situation. You've got all those kind of walls. And that's exactly what we saw on the on our big, you know, Excel generated world map, which I think is pretty cool. So that's that for this tutorial. If you've got any questions on the approach that I used or anything like that, let me know. Drop a comment, below the video, or give me a shout on Reddit or whatever it is. But otherwise, yeah, hope you enjoyed.